Howdy, Joe.
Pirate movies. The Pirates of the Caribbean franchise is a very unique thing. I think that everybody that is doing analysis on the Pirates franchise in anticipation of this fifth movie here, reflecting a lot on the first one. Everybody loved the first one. Why are we reflecting on this one little offshoot Disney movie and then it turned into a franchise? Well, because it was kind of one of the first things to really do the big franchise thing. It had one standalone movie. It was concise, it was normal, it was unique. It took something that people used to love and it was overdone to death, and it gave new life to it. It's kind of in the same way that I think about a lot of first movies, but particularly when I was reflecting on Alien last week. I like when a first movie has this mystique to it. It tries to do this world building but doesn't get bogged down in it. And so you got that with the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. You got this unique world that was a swashbuckling adventure, but then it had a couple of pieces to set up to move forward, and you had this mystical element, but then you had great character actors. You had your Johnny Depp. Obviously, everybody now knows the iconic Jack Sparrow is probably his most iconic role other than Mordecai, Edward Scissorhands. What's an iconic Johnny Depp character? Okay, Sweeney Todd. You had a unique thing in Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow in that first movie, and I think everybody who watches films often enough or reflects on films critically often enough recognizes that that's because he was a tangential character. He wasn't the main character of that first film. You had Orlando Bloom, you had Keira Knightley, and they were your main characters, your hero, your heroine, and then he was kind of like your side character who was the catalyst for everything that moved forward. For some reason, whoever it was that was overseeing the sequels to this didn't understand the aspects of what made that first movie work, because there were a lot of things happening in it, but at least they were controlled. When you move on to your sequels, there's too much of the two things that shouldn't have been happening in a sequel. Too much of Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, and too much weird piratese plot twists and supernatural elements. And so when you have now a saga of films set in this pirates lore, you have way too much supernatural stuff, and you got way too much buffoonery on behalf of Johnny Depp. If you think of Jack Sparrow as a character in an ensemble, and then you think, oh, we gotta focus more on him, that's like if Seinfeld went on the air into the 2000s, then Sony probably would have said, because it would have been a trend at the time, let's do a spin-off series about Kramer. Remember how kooky Kramer was? Except that wouldn't work, because you need Kramer as this absurdist, as a foil to Jerry and your core group of characters. The reason that Jack Sparrow works is because he's the wild card of the group, and he also is your character that introduces the audience to this bizarre pirates lore and the bizarre pirates rules. When you have that as your main character, you're like, what's going on? And so moving into Pirates of the Caribbean 5, speaking of which, I watched the first 3 as they came out, skipped on 4, and here I am going to see 5. I'm like, oh no, you really need to remember exactly what's going on to get the most out of this. You really don't, but when you're at the point where your movie opens with a young lad singing himself to the bottom of a boat, and all of a sudden you see Orlando Bloom and I've forgotten how to act. I'm like, oh, he has a son now. Okay, great. These Disney movies are at this point where they feel like they're episodes of television shows that they want you to go and binge watch before you go and see in the theater. And you even have other elements in this film like the iconic ship, the Black Pearl. I didn't see the fourth movie, and so I'm sitting there like, how the fuck did the... how the fuck did the Black Pearl end up in a little bottle? And luckily that was at the point in this movie where I was like, there's too much nonsense going on that I just have to enjoy the ride and not care. And that's a unique thing that the Pirates franchise has achieved, is constant nonsense. You have plot contrivances and plot conveniences. You have things that only happen and characters that only insert themselves into moments to tell you exactly where the story needs to go to get the characters one step closer to the MacGuffin. Because there's a lot of MacGuffins in these movies, by the way. The most recent of which is the Trident of Poseidon. I think this movie takes a step towards the right direction, because it kind of pulls in the reins from those sequels a little bit by giving you two new main characters, young girl, young lass, young boy. Young boy just happens to be, spoiler alert, the son of William Turner, the son of Legolas. That's not a spoiler, like I said, that's the first scene of the movie. And so he is kind of almost your through line for the film, because that's his end goal, even though the entire aspect of releasing the curse of the Flying Dutchman is an underlying theme that barely goes mentioned more than 3 times aside from the opening and the ending. Other than that, it's to keep Jack Sparrow from being murdered by another pirate that he'd done wrong, except this time it's a Spaniard lord played by Javier Bardem, and I actually quite like the makeup job they did on him. He does well enough. I think that Javier Bardem is capable of doing whatever it is the hell that he wants. Same in regards to Jeffrey Rush, except that Captain Barbossa was such a cool villain in that first movie, and he's gotten to this point where it's kind of like, oh, remember him? He was there. It doesn't even really feel like he's the same character. That's especially so in the actual plot twist of this movie. If you are a Pirates fan, I won't ruin it for you, but it feels like it's just another Disney thing. They're just doing the same thing in every franchise that they own. Once you've sat through this movie and you've seen the other ones, you recognize the formula, which is you have goofy set pieces, whether they're genuine or ripped off from Fast and Furious 5. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you. So you got your quick moving, goofy set pieces. Sometimes they're played for theatricality. Sometimes they're played for comedy. In this one, it leans more towards the latter. These Pirates movies are at the point where they feel like they're doing the tropes that were being made fun of 30 years ago in things like Robin Hood Men in Tights and your Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That one's 40, but you get my point. The trappings of old swashbuckling movies are now becoming the problem with the movie that tried to redefine that. And so basically the formula of these things has gotten to this cliche of this character wants this thing. We're going to introduce this character that wants this thing. And then this character wants this other thing. Oh, okay, all these motivations have nothing to do with each other, but they're definitely going to converge somewhere at the end of the first act. And they're going to chase this magical MacGuffin across the sea while another magical ship that has some kind of destructive power that really wants Jack Sparrow dead is going to chase them. They probably lollygag somewhere else, and then Jack Sparrow's gonna get them out of the situation, and every conversation with Jack Sparrow is gonna go somewhere along the lines of, well, I'm drunk, and I'm gonna use a double negative that's going to confuse you and make you not trust me, and then I'm also going to say some kind of big fancy word that is going to really confuse tons of adults in the audience because they know exactly what that word means, and I'm not using it in the right context, but every child under 12 is going to laugh their ass off. And that's kind of about every conversation with Captain Jack Sparrow. He's almost become a caricature of what that character originally was supposed to be, which was subversive of drunk pirate or drunk homeless Johnny Depp stereotypes. And then, yeah, you know, they get the MacGuffin, and then there's a big chase scene, and then somebody double crosses somebody else, and it doesn't even really seem like that there's a script. It kind of feels like that they're going set piece to set piece and just coming up with twists and double crosses with character motivation being improvised along the way. At least that's how they did it in the second and the third movie. It feels more concise than the third movie and what I have seen of the fourth. It at least makes some kind of sense, even though there's way too much color going on and there's way too much noise. But at least it was paced well, and I was with an audience that was reacting positively to the comedic moments. Maybe if you were to watch it, you would find those comedic moments dull. But if you're looking for throwbacks to the Pirates movies, yeah, okay. Enjoy it. Also, there are zombie sharks. Because reasons. Look, everybody will continue to give these a chance. Because that first one was such a strong movie. And for being put together by a couple of no-name directors, I think these guys had just worked on a couple of TV shows. They did pretty well at replicating the elements. Not to say that I think that, having seen Cure for Wellness myself, I don't think that Gore Verbinski's style in those first few movies was anything truly remarkable. I think that he had a great cinematic eye, great eye for color and for movement and for set design, and that gets reflected here a little bit, maybe some slightly more CG, and that's something that I will always give the Pirates franchise credit for, is spectacle. This is stupid. It's a really stupid movie, but if you want to see some spectacle and some swashbuckling and some humor, sure, what the hell.